quilty friends, it's Carolina Moore, your favorite sewing and quilting YouTuber, and I'm so excited because today we're going to work through this big giant pile of fabrics that I have here. I am going to work on a Scrappy log cabin quilt using all Christmas fabrics from last year's Christmas projects. So you ready? Let's get started. Alright friends, I have been looking forward to this project all year because I have all these leftover Christmas fabrics. I do an advent calendar every single year and we cut up fat quarter and half yard bundles for that advent calendar, which means we're cutting it off of bolts. And when you get to the end of a bolt, there's often a chunk of fabric that isn't quite a full half yard cut. And so we have all these like bits of end of bolt pieces. And then also I make a bunch of projects with the advent fabric, as well as I've been using this fabric for these Christmas in July projects. So I have like all these random scrappy bits of fabric that I need to do something with, right? So I'm going to turn them into a Scrappy log cabin, and I'm using the Quilt log cabin die to do that. So let's take a look at this die, put some fabric on it, and start cutting out some fabric. So let's take a look at our log cabin die. We have all the numbers. 1 is our smallest, going up to 12 is our biggest. Because of the space that this die takes up, I actually won't get a ton of number 12s out of my fabric. So, and I've got a sample block that I made here already. What I'm going to do is I need 2 number 1s, 2 number 2s, 2 number 3s, 2 number 4s, 2 number 5s, 2 number 6s, 2 number 7s, 2 number 8s, and then 1 number 9. And I'm not going to do the last round of another 9, 10, 10, 11, 12. So I'm making it actually a little bit smaller of a block, but I think that's also going to give a much scrappier look because I'm not going to have those really long strips. Now each of these pieces cuts 1.5 inches wide. So the number 1 piece is 1.5 inches by 1.5 inches. And so these are all 1 inch finished pieces in the block, and it makes for this super scrappy look. And we're going to start by putting some fabric here on our die. Now I think it's actually a little easier to flip this over this direction and place fabric. Now when you place fabric on your Quilt dies, you are not lining up with the edge of the die, you're lining up with the blade on the die. So I'm going to line it up like this. There we go. And I could maybe fold this over. Nope, I won't be getting more out of that. But I could fold this edge over if I was so inclined to get another number 1. I'm okay. I'm just going to leave that 1 layer here. This is one of those end of bolt chunks that I was talking about. So this is 2 layers of fabric. And again, we want to line it up so that it's lined up with the blades and not with the die. So now I have 3 layers. Now an Quilt will cut up to 6 layers of fabric. I have a smaller piece here. This is also 2 layers. I'm going to lay that right down here. You see how far over I am? Just peeking underneath. A bit far over. Alright. And this is just, I'm not super worried about exact placement. It's a scrappy quilt and I just want to get a bunch of chunks out of this. So we're going to put our mat on here. And this is the Go Big, so it's electronic. As I tuck this in, it's going to grab it and pull it right through. Give this a rub, slide it off, and then the first thing that I do is I pull away the outside extra fabric so it's not in my way. Okay, I've pulled the outside fabric and I have just the leftover pieces, or the cut pieces here. And I grabbed what I use as kind of like a design wall board. It is it's just a canvas, like a inexpensive canvas from the craft store that I've covered with batting. And this is super worn. I've used it so many times. The fabric kind of sticks to it a little bit. And I stack these up with all my number ones here, then all my number twos, my number threes, my number fours, my number fives, sixes, sevens. Now this number 8 is not fully cut, so I'm going to discard that one because of the kind of scrap it was. Let's see, and then my number 8s. Now these are 9s. This one's a little short, so the pieces that didn't quite cut long enough, I kind of throw them over here on the end, and that way if I'm short a piece I can always say, oh, I need, you know, one more of these, and I'll just line it up and chop it. You know, that one's not wide enough, so we're gonna get rid of that one. Again, this one's short, so I'll put my 10s, 11s, 12s on here just to have them as extras, so that I can always cut them down to make more of these smaller pieces if I need. These are just like my extra scraps, but I have at least my 1s, 2s, 3s, and so ons kind of lined up, you can see, along here and ready to start sewing. So now I'm going to, I would keep cutting and cutting until I had a good number. This is a Scrappy quilt. It's not entirely going to get done today. We're going to start working on it. This is going to be my Christmas in July through when I finish it up. But we'll get a good idea of what this is going to look like before the video is done. Don't you worry, this whole design wall, it's going to be a change-in. Okay, so I'm going to tidy up my move that all out of the way, and get myself set up for sewing and show you what the process of chain sewing these log cabin blocks looks like. Alright, so I've put my cutting mat away completely because I have the iron plugged in and I need to turn it on, get that warmed up. And I don't want the cutting mat underneath the iron, because even through these wool mats, the heat can soak in and it'll warp my cutting mat. And I don't want to do that because I've ruined too many cutting mats that way. So I've got the iron set up, and then I have my board here with all of my pieces in order. And what we're going to do is we're going to start with the number 1 pieces. And we can just pair them up with one another, and we're just going to use a 1/4 inch seam allowance. We're going to put them right sides together, and then we sew these. Now this is one of those great projects to put on a some Netflix or a good audiobook and just start sewing. So you can chain piece these, grabbing just 2 pieces, because this is Scrappy. Now with a traditional log cabin, you would definitely do an order of traditional, like a truly traditional log cabin usually has a red center and then has a dark side and a light side. But this is a fully Scrappy log cabin, so it does not matter. I just want 2 different pieces. And see, they're just chaining off the back here. There's 3. I think I want to do 5 here to give us a good idea, but you can do 20, 30, 40 of these at a time, just chaining them all together. Alright, so I'm doing 5, but I have this large stack. I could keep going if I wanted. And I'm going to cut these off the back. I like keeping my chain going, so I'm going to keep 1 on there, and that's okay. We'll come back to it in a little bit, no big deal. Now you can use a chain piecing thread cutter. I should probably get mine out as we continue this on, but since I have the scissors in my hand, I'm just going to go ahead and cut these apart. And now we go ahead and press them. So just using the iron that I have heated up, press towards whatever the out is. So we're pressing our seams towards the outside, which means that this is now the middle, this is now the middle. I decided this pink is the middle, so that's going to go out. And then I'm going to have this green one be the middle on this one, so that's going to be out. Now, log cabin, oh, that one's stuck on. Now, log cabin blocks, they spiral out from the center. So this is the center, and it spirals out. So I like to sew the next one on. You can kind of see it on here. So I'm going to grab a piece number 2. There we go. So I'm going to sew it on so that this seam right here is coming towards me. It's the one time that I'm going to have one seam and I can really control, so I'm going to have that seam coming towards me. So it's going to go in center first, seam coming towards me, with the number 2 piece on the bottom. And if you always do it that way, then all of your blocks will always spiral in the same direction. Now this is a Scrappy quilt, so if your blocks, some spiraled in one direction and some spiraled in another direction, people would just think that that was intentional. So I wouldn't worry too much about it. Now I'm just grabbing number 2, and I just want different than the other 2 pieces that I have. I've been trying to keep my blocks so that I don't have 2 pieces of the same fabric touching. But if I were to get 2 pieces of the same fabric touching, I would not worry about it. I have a couple more pieces sewn on, so I can cut this off the back. I'm going to have this white one be the center on this one. So I'm going to cut 4 of these off. And we're going to press towards the out. So we basically press towards the piece that we just added. And that one is pressed out. So this is my center, my first round. So my next one goes here. It's going to be another of piece 2. For each of these rounds, we're adding 2, 1, and then 2, 2, and then 2, 3, and then 2, 4. So you keep adding 2, and you'll add 1 at the very end of the last one. So I'm going to put a piece on. Once you have a couple on there, you can cut this other one off and press it. Alright, we're going to go ahead and press these ones we just added out as well. So we've done 2 number 1s, 2 number 2s, so now I'm moving on to adding piece number 3. And it should be pretty obvious where piece number 3 is going to go. I want to add a piece of fabric that isn't on this piece yet. Now this is the first time that we have 2 seams along one edge, and from here on it gets really easy to know where to add your next piece, because from now on there's going to be 2 sides that have 1 seam. So this edge has 1 seam, this edge has 1 seam, 1 edge that has no seams, and then 1 edge that has 2 seams. And so we're always going to add the piece on the side that has 2 seams, and that makes it really easy to not have to focus too much or pay too much attention as we go all the way around. So now we're going to add our first piece 3. Then we'll be pressing these, again pressing out, pressing towards the outer edge of the block, so away from the center. And then adding a second piece 3. And then we're going to keep going, adding 2 piece 4s, 2 piece 5s, around and around and around we go until we have the block the size that we want. Alright, you can see we have our center and then 1 row all the way around. I'm going to end up having 4 rows all the way around on this. So row 1, I'm going to do it 3 more times to make a total of, from the center, 4 out. And that's going to make these super scrappy looking blocks. Each time I'm going to find the side with 2 seams. So here it's the side with 2 seams to add the next piece on. Alright, so I'm going to keep sewing. I'm going to do a very, very short montage of you seeing me sew all these pieces together, and then I'll be right back so that we can talk about putting the quilt together. Alright friends, the blocks are done. I will be making more, but I've cleared off the design wall so we can get an idea of what this is all going to look like. If you don't have a design wall, that's perfectly okay, because you can lay these out on a floor, you can lay these out on a bed. There's lots of ways you can lay these out, and I'm not worried about which direction they are. So here, this is the center. The smallest one is over here on the bottom. This one, the smallest one's on the left. Here it's on the right. I'm not worried about where they are. This is Scrappy, so I kind of want them to be kind of just wherever they end up. I would like it if the same fabric didn't touch, but at this point there probably will be a couple spots. Like here, that's the same fabric. Like if I can help it, I'll try to have it so that the same fabric doesn't touch, but if they do, then they do. It's not a big deal. Like here, these two are the same fabric. Those will touch, and that'll be okay. So you can lay it out. That'll give you an idea of kind of what it looks like, and try to find a balance. Some of your blocks might be a little more light, so like this one has a lot more light colors in it, and some of them might have more darks in them, so you might want to play with that depending on how particular you are about how they end up. I'm not very particular about this. This is a fun scrappy quilt. This is a quilt that I'm making for me, to be able to enjoy and to have for myself, as just a fun Christmas quilt. There's all thought I had a couple more, but that's how far I am. So you can kind of, like, as I kind of go to the side, you can kind of get a look for it. Like you can kind of see there's a lot of light in here. Do I care? No, I'm okay with it totally being scrappy. Can put some here. Move them around. So then the question becomes, how big do I want it? And I definitely want more blocks than this in my finished quilt. But yeah, that gives an idea for kind of like how it's coming together. Alright, I couldn't help myself. I played around with it a little bit more, and I could probably play around with this all day. The next step would be to square up these blocks. I have a whole video on squaring up. I'm going to link that at the end of this video, and it's also going to be in the description. If you haven't seen my squaring up video, I go into detail on how to square up blocks and different ways to square up blocks. You want to square these up because that's going to help the whole quilt lay flatter when it's all put together. And then it's a super simple process of sewing the blocks into rows and then sewing the rows together to make the quilt top. And if I want, I can then add borders to the outside of it. I might do borders. I might do scrap tape borders. That might be really fun to do big scrap tape borders on this. But this gives you a really good look at how fun super scrappy log cabins are. These were all done with one line of fabric. This was the 2023 Art Gallery Christmas line, and I'm loving how this is turning out. So friends, if you enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up. If you have any questions or comments, leave those down below. Make sure you are subscribed to this channel, and I will see you right here real soon. Bye for now.